So there's a lot of bad information when it comes to gun laws in the state of California, and specifically when it comes to transporting a firearm and how to do it legally in the state of California. There's a lot of bad information out there, and seemingly, unfortunately, law enforcement are often the people spreading this bad information, which leads to people being more likely to believe it because they've appealed to authority, and ultimately the cops are going to be the ones that are going to arrest you for the things that aren't even illegal in the first place, because you know the law, they don't, but they're the ones with the gun and a badge. So anyways, not to trash law enforcement too much, but in the state of California, this is one of the big things that I hear a lot. There's a lot of bad information about how to transport a firearm in the state of California. Today we are going to talk about how to transport handguns and pistols, how to transport long guns, how to transport registered assault weapons, if you have them. We're going to talk about some best practices as well, because sometimes what the law is doesn't actually matter. What matters is what will keep you out of jail. Ultimately, you do as you please. I'm not going to make you do anything. I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to watch you as you get in your car. That's your own decision. You're going to have to make the choices for yourself, but I'm going to give you some recommendations to help you. Now, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. I'm going to have some references down below. There's specifically one thing that I have learned in the past couple of years that made me want to re-talk about this video, and I'm going to have a link to, or I'll reference the site that I got that information from, because I'm not entirely sure if I can YouTube approved link that site. Before we get into this, I want to say thank you to the people that support me, the sponsors of this channel, Barbell Apparel. Check them out. They make clothing, pants, jeans, fitness clothing, tactical clothing, if you want to call it that, tactical clothing. If you're into fitness, if you're into doing stuff outdoors, or if you just want jeans that are comfortable and have a little bit of stretch, check out Barbell Apparel. Tell them I sent you. If you want to shoot and you live in Southern California, check out Route 66 Shooting Sports Park down in San Bernardino, California. Excellent prices on stuff. I won't elaborate too much, but it's crazy. If you're local, hit them up. Also, thank you to Gorilla Mind. Use code RENO to save 10% off anything on their website, including this product here. It works. Anyways, great products, great supplements. Thank you. Let's get into it. So, handguns, pistols, firearms that are capable of being concealed on the person. What does that mean? Well, reminder, not a lawyer, not legal advice, but there are three categories of firearms when it comes to transportation law generally. The first one is firearms that are capable of being concealed on the person. And that generally means any firearm in this state with a barrel of less than 16 inches. So your pistols, your revolvers, your Glocks, your Glizzies, your Mac 11s, your AR pistols, whether they're fixed mag or whatever, your AR pistols included in this. They must be transported, unloaded, in a locked container, generally at all times, unless that firearm, that handgun, is on your CCW permit and you are doing so legally. But generally, we're just talking about transport, not talking about carrying today. Handguns in the state of California, unloaded, locked container. Now, notice how I didn't mention putting the ammo in a different part of the car. Notice how I didn't say lock up the ammo in a different container. Notice how I didn't say you got to shove it up your butt or have a chase car behind you that transports just the ammo and then you transport just the guns in your own vehicle. Unloaded, locked container for handguns. Now, what is a locked container? A locked container in the state of California for transportation generally means a container of any kind that is locked, okay? Or the trunk of a vehicle. We'll talk about that also. What it does not include, specifically called out in the penal code as not included, is a glove box or utility compartment. So what does that mean? Glove box, obviously, it's a little thing over on the side of the car, glove box, right? That does not count as a locked container. What does a utility compartment mean? Well, it's sort of vague. There's some examples given, but basically, if it's bolted to the vehicle and it's meant to be for any sort of utility purpose, it probably doesn't count as a locked container. So don't put it in your center console. Even if your center console has one of those little safes, chances are you still could get a little bit hung up because that's sort of a utility console still. The under the seat in the back of your truck bed-mounted safes, if it's bolted in there, the way that they describe utility compartment sort of directly describes that also. So we'll talk about some examples later. I'm gonna go into my garage after we talk about this, but handguns, unloaded, locked container, or the trunk. Specifically, not inside the center console or glove box or utility compartment. That's what I'm gonna say about that. So this is Reno from about 20 minutes in the future. I forgot to mention, if the trunk of your vehicle is a hatchback, it's not a trunk. If you have an SUV, it's not a trunk. If you have a normal, let's say regular Honda Civic non-hatchback, and you have a trunk, and you lock that trunk from the outside, but then you go into the vehicle, into the back seat, and you can just pull down the rear seats and get into the trunk, which is very common on newer vehicles, that would not be considered a locked trunk. If you can just open it and reach in, that would not be considered a locked trunk, unfortunately, or at least by any definition of it. Now, I know some of you are probably going to also be thinking, well, what if it's clicked into place? What if I put a bunch of stuff in the way? If you can't lock those seats, it's not a locked trunk. Now, here's a firearm. This gun is loaded. This gun is still loaded. This gun is no longer loaded. This gun is unloaded. Okay? This gun, loaded, unloaded, loaded, loaded. Sorry, got all mixed up. Unloaded, loaded, unloaded, loaded, still loaded, unloaded. Empty magazine, empty gun, unloaded firearm. Loaded. Okay, we've got that out of the way. That's what loaded means. That's what unloaded means. Now, we'll talk about ammo on the gun, but we understand handguns now, right? Seems pretty self-explanatory. Unloaded, locked container. Don't care about all that other jazz you might have heard. Now, long guns, other than assault weapons. Long guns in the state of California. So your rifles, your shotguns, your things with barrels of over 16 inches. Those firearms are a little bit different. The way it works with the law for them, not a lawyer, not legal advice, is that it must simply be unloaded. That's really all the laws generally say, except, we'll talk about the excepts. So, long guns, unloaded. What does that mean? No ammo in the chamber, no loaded magazine in the gun. What about your shotgun that has a buttstock or a side saddle with ammo in it? Well, there's actual specific case law that says your shotgun, your 12-gauge shotgun or whatever, your firearm with a side saddle with ammunition on it, that is not considered loaded. So we're good there. Would I recommend it? No. Just take the 3 rounds that are sitting in the side saddle out, put them somewhere else in the case so they can't get lodged into the mag tube or whatever. Just don't do it. But it's not illegal, okay? Long guns, unloaded, that's it. Now, school zones. Do you know where every single school zone is? Well, it's 1,000 feet from any edge of that property, I believe is the definition. But do you know where every single school is? Do you know where every single property that's owned by a school is? Do you know where every single school is in the state of California? Well, probably not. So, when you're traveling through a school zone, firearms, they gotta be unloaded in a locked container. Now, we'll talk about the locked container examples, some more practical, tangible examples of locked containers when I go into my garage, but long guns, generally unloaded. In a school zone, unloaded in a locked container. How do you know if you're in a school zone at any given moment? You don't. Probably a good idea to go ahead and put that in a locked container. Okay? Just, Up to you. You make your own decisions. Now, this is something I found out about in the last couple of years that I wanted to talk about. There is a guy who got charged with crimes and actually, like, you know, he got sentenced and everything. This guy got in trouble because he had a firearm that was in a case, and it was deemed that he was carrying a concealed firearm, I believe is my understanding of it. And it was a long gun. So a firearm simply being in a case that is not locked would be considered concealed. So with rifles and shotguns, the difficult part becomes is that there's this sort of understanding that if you have a rifle or shotgun in your car, you can just put it on your back seat where it's openly visible. Put it in your front seat on the passenger side, openly visible, but still unloaded, right? That's fine. Just on the back seat or just down in the bottom, if it's plainly visible for an officer to view, that would generally be thought of as fine. The second it becomes concealed, hidden from view, hidden from plain view at all, that could get you in trouble with carrying a concealed firearm. It's unlikely, but it's just something to consider. So with long guns, what I recommend, unloaded inside of a locked container to avoid that. Also to avoid the fact that you don't know where the school zones are. Ultimately, you get to make your own decisions and choices, but unloaded, locked container. Assault weapons, what about them? Well, what about them? If you own a registered assault weapon in the state of California, when you transport that firearm anywhere, you must be specifically going to or from lawful locations to do so without any unnecessary stops. You must also always have that firearm unloaded in a locked container. It's important to understand that because it's specifically different. With rifles and shotguns, you can just drive around with a shotgun on your back seat. Just openly visible, shotgun in your back seat, driving around totally fine. Handguns, you got to be going to or from a lawful location. It could be your buddy's house, it could be going to the range, but you just can't just keep that thing on you. And when you leave the vehicles, you have to unloaded locked container that directly to wherever it is legal to do so. You can't just walk around with it, you know? Rifles and shotguns, you can just keep that thing in your back seat. Now when you leave the vehicle, and if you're through a school zone, unloaded locked container, because you can't carry publicly firearms generally. Assault weapons are difficult because you specifically, it's written in such a way that the last time I really looked at this, it was confusing about whether or not I could stop for gas and then like go inside and use the shitter. If it was unloaded locked container, not plainly visible, it was tough. So transporting assault weapons are difficult in the state of California. And if you have one, take special care to not get pulled over, don't break any other laws, try to avoid any stops if possible. It's just tougher in the state of California. So we've talked about that. We've talked about school zones. We've talked about some of the buts and the excepts. Let's go on down to my garage where I keep my Lamborghinis, and we will talk about some practical cases that you can use. Okay, so sorry for the bad production quality on this. We're just gonna kind of go over a couple examples of some common cases and cases that I use. So rifles, shotguns, this would be our long gun example. And we'll show you how to lock those up. Assault weapons would be considered the same. Your AR pistols would also kind of fit in something like this. But yeah, so some common examples of how simple it can be to transport a firearm legally. So here is a simple pouch, a zipper pouch by Savior Equipment. What's neat about this, it's got two zippers. They can meet anywhere, and they meet up with these little eye holes that you can then simply put a little cable or combo or key lock through. Now it's locked. Cool. You know, that's a very simple thing. What's cool about these is Savior Equipment pistol bags, range bags, often come with several of them. So if you wanted to just take a simple sleeve, you could put it in there, or you could lock up the entire pistol case itself. This would be an example of like a range bag that you would just use. This is a pretty common type of setup. This is from a company called LifePod. These just pop open. You can put your guns in here. These are TSA approved, which is actually pretty sweet. I'll try to have a link to these down in the description or something like that. But you can put your pistols in here, thumbprint or key code with a key override. Now, unfortunately, these, since they are TSA approved, means the TSA can just get in there and finger blast them however they like. Now, if you want just more of a dedicated pistol style bag, there's a variety of manufacturers out there. But again, just, you know, this is a savior bag, but the zippers, say it with me, folks, the zippers have a hole and you could lock that up super easy. You could put your Desert Eagle in there if you so please. So for rifles, here is a pretty neat setup that I've got for my AR-15. I've actually really been enjoying this lately, especially when I go out and just bring like one long gun with me. It's got this little pouch here that you can use to lock in the barrel. You got this adjustable position Velcro wrap that you can use to change where you want it to retain, but very simple, just boom, boom. You wrap it all up. Other side has this MOLLE webbing that I've got a variety of stuff. I got batteries of a variety different types in here. 3 Glock mags, 2 rifle mags. I store something in here that I'm not gonna talk about, and I'll usually keep like 1 magazine like this or just some random tools in there depending on what I'm going out and doing. This locks up, got a variety of things on the front. And again, the zippers can meet up in the middle and lock. So really, it is that simple. I understand that this can be very confusing and you might still be confused. Well, if you are, go ahead and drop a comment down below. But I want to reference a place on the webs that I don't think I can actually link because I think certain product links might exist there. But it's CaliforniaCarry.org. If you Google that, you'll find it. They have a variety of great resources and links. And if you want to go directly to the source for good information, check out the CRPA, California Rifle and Pistol Association. If you're interested at all in getting rid of the bad gun laws in the state of California, or if you want to have a good resource for learning, following what's going on, check out the CRPA. They are the supporters and main drivers of the 2 lawsuits that I'm a part of. I'm just a plaintiff. They're doing all the work. People thank me all the time for the stuff that I'm doing. It's really all the CRPA and Michelle and Associates. I'm just thankful enough that I get to be a part of it and have my little bit of skin in the game, you know? Anyways, you guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.